So we move into our roundtable here, and I thank you again, everybody. You guys, that was awesome. Thank you, right? Weren't those great? All right, so since we haven't heard from Etrit since this morning, we'll start with Etrit. But so couple, a question for the group. One of the things that obviously you guys are all updating your products, and a lot of it has to do with AI. A lot of it has to do with, the usual sustainability, lowering costs, things like that. But when Etrit, when you guys at KODE, it's really cool. You guys have written APIs to, numerous, dozens and dozens of systems. And, when you look at the device data coming in today, and we look at the devices for our industry now and in the future, what do we, as now you're like a data guy, you know what I mean? Like you're the guy sucking the data up. So what are we not getting out of that layer, the controller layer, if you may, the data? Like, does it need to be faster, IP? Like, what are you guys seeing at KODE when it comes to that?
That's a great question. I think Steven and the rest of the guys kind of like talked about this earlier too. It definitely, you want to see more standards from like a cyber perspective, right? Like that's one of the big ones. The other ones are like, what does it need to do? I think the industry's definitely working through having a more and more open standard when it comes to how you should name these, what the type of ontology and the type of things that should be there. I think we probably need another push at that to really normalize a little bit more, just to make it easier and easier. So that way, like as we see these controllers, as we bring data up to the cloud, I think there's definitely a lot more ways to make it more quicker and faster to deploy. Like when some of the demos that we were showing yesterday and this morning, AI is allowing us to do things that people would say, I needed some really crazy experienced engineer to tell me what type of data points these are. AI is just telling us that with a click now, with the data that we have. So I think the more and more data we have up there in the cloud, I think that's going to really just help us be able to tell even some of the older equipment and systems that are in place to make them easier to just bring up.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. And over to Todd. So Todd, then the question comes back to you. So how is Belimo modifying their products for that cloud connected, the future of it? How are you, the actuator guy, the silky sensor guy, what is Belimo going to do to help, make this better for all of us, this movement?
Yeah. Belimo has already fully embraced the viability of the cloud in our information already that we store via the cloud, and obviously it's a security issue that's going to be ongoing. There's not going to be a silver bullet that's going to fix it, but we'll continue to access that the best way possible. Obviously speed is going to be a key. Can we retrieve it quickly? Can it live where it needs to live? Can we access it locally? One of the things that we've looked at, though, in the last few years, and we have our eye on this very closely as well, and Jim kind of looked around the corner when he gave his presentation in talking about the cloud, we've also seen full-stack BMS controllers with a terabyte of memory built in, right? That's data that they can own at the local level. Well, how is that going to, in turn, play with the cloud? Now, obviously, that's not a level of memory that, as a device manufacturer, certainly at an actuator or a valve or a sensor level, we need to embrace. We're definitely looking at that because that's something that's going to be, whether it's a parallel effort or whether it works in series with cloud storage and cloud data, we want to make sure that we haven't eliminated the fact that that might be something we need to include at the device level.
For sure. And how many here have integrated with the energy valve and communicated to it? You can see, there's a lot of us that, it was funny when the energy valve came out, it was neat because it did the meter, we could sub-meter loads for tenants, and that was awesome. But then the real benefit we saw was just the fact that it communicated became a big deal too, right?
Yeah, it did, and I teased it a little bit in the presentation, but the next generation energy valve with that modular configuration will allow it to do even more. I've been threatened with a beating to not reveal too much about what we're going to do with our next generation of energy valve, but that's absolutely where we're going. Thanks, Scott.
I mean, I got a bat. You know, We'll get it out of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, thank you, Todd. So I think Bill, I think you're next on the wire here. So Bill, so Johnson Controls. I mean, obviously you're a leader in controls, but also in equipment. And Bill, could you speak to the controls and on the equipment side in terms of OT and how they're going to be connected to BAS in the future into the cloud and what Johnson's thinking about there?
Yeah, I mean, there's really two things. One is for efficiency, we're seeing a lot more control systems get packaged with the equipment. We especially see this in Europe where the installations are a little more straightforward, where you can package the system with the air handler, et cetera. We are coming out with a full, very high-end controller on our chillers. They'll be packaged with the chiller in the factory. That's something that'll be available later this year, and we're showing that in our lab. So that's become a bigger and bigger piece, that OEM packaging, that equipment packaging with the control system. And it's a natural evolution where you'd expect the edge to get smarter and smarter. And, that somewhat changes the game. I was talking earlier about edge control and where that edge control can live in the devices. It can live in the equipment. It can live in the devices. We've shipped smart equipment with our York branded products for quite some time. And we see more and more interest from the OEM community in getting more and more intelligence in their equipment.
Yeah, it's coming quick, isn't it, Bill? So over to Kelly. Distech, you guys have been a leader in IP controls for many years now. Probably one of the first ones to really go after it, if you may. Could you speak to how, at Distech, what does it look like today in terms of how much you're shipping that's IP versus MSTP? What does that look like today?
Yeah, so if I didn't say it earlier today, I meant to. But yeah, from an IP controller perspective, the ramp up has been exponential, right? So, I think the focus really started 5 to 6 years ago. And if you look at just the first half of this year, our fiscal year, which just wrapped up in March, we're now shipping over 70% of our controller volume is IP.
Wow.
So it was and I think I did say it earlier.
I'm sorry, and what was it maybe last year at this time?
It's about 60%.
Okay.
So, but prior to that, the jump was exponential.
Gotcha.
So 25, 30% increases year over year. It's starting to flatten a little bit. And we're just seeing some of the legacy technologies like LAN hanging on, and not able to convert some key end customers like the federal government and spaces like that away from those products to IP. But eventually, we'll get there.
Is Distech seeing it all the way down to the VAV controller level at that rate? Or is it still primarily large equipment controls that are IP-based for Distech?
I'd say we're getting there. I'd say a higher percentage is still, plant room, more complex systems. But as I mentioned earlier today, as we're rolling out our smaller controllers with all of the features of, say, an Apex, right? And that's coming out with version 2 from an Eclipse perspective. That also has impacted that percentage for which we're shipping from an IP perspective.
Interesting. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Diamond Dave. Can I start? I'm going to steal a nickname one of the Honeywell guys took before. Can I start calling you Global? When I heard your title, you got the whole world.
Guy, you can call me whatever you want.
Global. Where's Hoffman wasn't here. I'm stealing it from Steve Hoffman. You're global now. So globally, Dave, tell us about that transition from serial to IP at the controller level, what you're seeing globally, like in other parts of the world. Are most of them still on serial? Are most of them on IP? Where's the rest of the world headed?
Yeah, definitely. North America is the furthest along in the IP game for sure.
Interesting.
Understand though that there is, millions of old, line controllers out there that are all eligible to be upgraded with new technologies that we have today. The IP T1L framework is obviously important to Honeywell because we want to leverage that install base that we have. But without question, there are pockets of Asia, Scott. I don't want to suggest, I don't want to misconstrue anybody or inform anybody. There are pockets in Asia and Singapore that is much more IP centric. But if you think about it on a continent level, definitely North America is furthest ahead.
Yeah, very interesting. And then, Dave, from a Honeywell portfolio standpoint, and you mentioned you got a bunch of brands that you're managing. Obviously, we're all focused on the Honeywell brand and Tridium, just two of the brands you manage. Tell us about the IP in the other brands in terms of, because obviously the Honeywell channel has gone IP 100%, right? And, Niagara was always IP, but what about the other brands of Honeywell? Is it going across the portfolio, do you feel like?
It is actually, yeah. We see it happening with Allerton, we see it happening with Trend. Some of the other brands, Cybergis in Germany, it's kind of grew up as a PLC company. I characterize it as a PLC with BAS genetics, and so we're taking that controller with all the benefits of a true PLC with redundancy and speed and OPC UA connectivity, all of those things that come with that particular PLC, and we're winning in data centers with that for sure. But it is. This is a really fun time in our industry, right? I mean, to see all these transformations happening to some extent in slow motion right in front of us, certainly slow enough that we can catch it. And I think the panelists that you have here today are certainly, part of leading that agenda.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Dave. Okay, over to Andy and the Holy Candle over here.
I love that.
He loves
We're
it.
getting
He loves
T-shirts
it.
made. We're getting T-shirts made, right, Andy? The Holy Candle.
I mean,
Holy Candle of
the Holy
BAS.
Candle, he keeps the BAS, and he's burning for the BAS, always burning for the BAS industry. So, okay, guys. So, portability in terms of, Docker, containerized Niagara. So we're, it's on the price sheet, containerized Niagara. It's an interesting product, especially when you think about like moving to the IP world, right? And what that would mean with something like that type of technology. So I guess, either one of you guys want to kind of, like how does the community take advantage of that kind of technology, like the containerized version of Niagara?
Yeah, so we released a containerized version of Niagara in version 4.13. And what that does is it kind of changes the way that you would traditionally deploy Niagara, perhaps like in a VM or a server class machine. And one of the reasons that you would want to go to a container, for example, is that they're going to be able to utilize the platform's resources far more efficiently than it would within a VM, for example. It also enables us to be able to build something like this next generation supervisor that we're talking about. Because what we can do is we can isolate certain, we'll call it capabilities that the Niagara framework's doing today, and put them in containers to, of course, ensure that it's scalability. And of course that helps us control the hosting costs, and if you're hosting it helps you control those hosting costs as well. And so the scalability that's afforded by running a container is something that's far greater than what you're able to achieve within a virtual machine. And then I will say though, Scott, it's something that's new for our industry, and so the way that you deploy it and just interacting with Docker, for example, that's not something that maybe everybody is aware of, but it's something I think that will generally nurture over time, and I think it'll become more part of our DNA. In fact, we've got a couple partners here that are leading purely with containerized Niagara. And if you've got a lanyard on, you see Neese. They are a Niagara partner, and they're leading with just a purely Niagara container play.
So how many of you used to use the soft Jace to communicate to a bunch of IP devices? Anybody in here remember the soft Jace? So I've been told this is kind of like the new soft Jace, Stephen. Would you say that that's kind of accurate in that way?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the only difference would be, serial connections and things like that are a little bit more challenging within a container itself, and that's just by virtue of the way that containers run and they're architected. So it's kind of like it, but it's not exactly like it, but yeah.
Look, the one thing I'll say is it's a lot of work and it's a lot of investment to get it right. And I think Dave hinted on this earlier in his presentation. We had a lot of new resources. We had to add a lot to our budget to continue to develop our containerization strategy. I think our cloud native approach is dependent upon this. I think it's a journey. I've used the term journey several times throughout my presentation. I know many of you have as well. And so to get the technology right is one thing, but then the way you commercialize it is something else. Getting the pricing right, getting the value prop right, getting the training right. So, you know, it's not just a technology play, it's the whole piece. And, you know, quite frankly, we're still learning, but we're dedicating a lot more time to it than we ever have. And I think that is the next big thing for us.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And that, you know, one of the advantages, everybody, is that you don't necessarily have to embed a bunch of layers before you run Niagara, which, depending on the platform you're on, you can really lower the cost of your deployment. But cool. Okay, so moving on, we'll keep with the Tridium dudes, the Holy Candle, and his buddy Mad Dog. So, moving over to the cloud. So we're all super excited that you guys are moving up to the cloud. But of course, we as an industry, we're consistently challenged with the cybersecurity between the building and the cloud. Could you guys speak to, in your cloud strategy, how you plan to help the community with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to the cloud supervisor, you know, one thing that you get is the minute that we have an update available, Niagara will be aware, for example, that there is an update available, and fetching that will be pretty seamless just because it's, you know, running within a public cloud, for example. When it comes
auto updates on the platform.
Correct.
Which is huge.
Yeah, and that's also going to apply down to all of your connected Niagara devices as well. So that's kind of one of the hallmark features of Niagara 5, and something that, you know, we believe that we owe to you just because you've been keeping your SMA active. You know, you've asked, for example, you know, why should you go with an SMA? And we say the security story is one of the most important things, but providing you the ability to be able to take that update in a immediate fashion, I think that's incumbent upon us, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Cool. Andy, anything to add on that?
Yep, I'll come back to my man Diamond Dave over there again. So Honeywell has been a great steward of Tridium, and, you know, there's some things about Honeywell that, you know, are hard to take, but there are many things about Honeywell that are great, and the one is the whole cybersecurity philosophy, and I can tell you it's the best on the planet, and so we get challenged every day to be the best. We have a lot of help and guidance that we get through the Honeywell team as well, and so, like Steven says, you know, it's built in. It's secure by default, and it is. And we have all the test data and the scars and the bruises to prove it. And that's another thing that's not easy. It's easy to say, very hard to do. And so, you know, we do get help from Honeywell in that regard, so thank you, Dave.
Nobody gets pen tested like you guys in the field. Nobody. Like, you're the first one always on the list. Which is good for all of us, right? That's validation and the strategies by our customers, which is hugely important to make sure that they're comfortable with what we're doing. And I agree, I think you guys do a great job with that. And I'm excited for you guys to build that call home strategy to get us up to the cloud. So I think that'll really help. So back over to Diamond Dave over there. Dave, you know, we just talked about like the cloud, and of course, Honeywell's got a huge investment in Forge. They continue to invest in that cloud technology. And, you know, I mean, and I don't want to ask you this question like cynically, but could you help our audience understand, like, what is Honeywell's, why are they investing so much in it? Like, what do they think is going to come from that in the long haul?
Scott, thanks for the question. I'll give you a little bit more color as to, you know, when I came back in this Forge kickoff event, literally my first day back at the company, the day after Labor Day, come in the morning, meet with my boss. He says, "Hey, we have a Forge review session, and we're making a pitch to Vimal Kapoor, who is our CEO of Honeywell." So Vimal was in the building, and I'm like, I don't even know where the restrooms are yet, but okay, let's go. And walked in there, and the team did a great job, told the story about why this is transformational for Honeywell, like it would be for any other OEM. This is a migration of transactional sale to a as-a-service sale, right? And so the notion of, you know, having 1.5 million licenses of Niagara today, moving to an annual recurring revenue generates much more predictability in terms of earnings as a public company. There's all kinds of benefits that come from it from that angle. But we finished, my team finished the presentation to Vimal. He said, we're all in. This is the right strategy. He said, what do you need? The team looked at him with a straight face and said, we need 300 engineers. And he said, 100% funded today. Okay? And so literally from September 3rd to May 15th, that entire stack was completely rebuilt.
Wow.
Completely rebuilt.
Wow, I guess that's a serious commitment, eh? So that's great. Well, cool. Well, thank you. All right, Kelly. So over to Kelly. So Distech with the cloud, I mean, kind of a different approach, right? I mean, you guys are really trying to, starting with a lot of really cool productivity enhancement tools. Could you speak to kind of like some of the thoughts on the way Distech's looking at the cloud and how they're using it to help their partners?
Yeah, I mean, look, hey, I certainly won't profess myself an R&D expert when it comes to the cloud, but I will say that we've taken a very careful approach, I guess is the best way for me to say it. Unfortunately, witnessing some of our colleagues on the stage here, and including my time at another competitor, Siemens, with some missteps, right? And so I think learning a little bit from what's already occurred in the industry, certainly making some similar mistakes ourselves along the way. But the channel is so important to our business is that, part of the decision that's been made is that we want to start there first, right? And so how can we make our channel more comfortable with the cloud, with the journey moving to the cloud, they're ultimately an extension of our sales team and our marketing efforts. So they'll come along with that journey with us to help move to the next steps where it's, cloud BMS and at the end users. So again, I think the best way I can say it's been more of a careful approach. Frustrating, right? Because I joined Distech nearly 2.5 years ago, and the day that I started, there were meetings associated with this topic, right? But hopefully we get it right the first time, even though I'm sure we'll make some mistakes along the way.
Yeah, I'll bet. Well, Bill, back over to you. So going back to that cloud strategy, I mean, just overall from a Johnson perspective, I mean, and even on the equipment side, I mean, what are you guys thinking in terms of how to capitalize on this new industry?
Well, I mean, the first thing, and it's pretty obvious, we don't think about it in our industry that much, but if you want mobile access to your building, if you want mobile access to your BAS system, et cetera, you're cloud connected by definition, right? Your mobile devices interface via the cloud to the building. And that's what it means to have the building connected. And that's kind of the first step. And we're still very early in that connectivity game. Yes, we have certain pieces of equipment that are connected. There's certain BAS systems that are connected. We had Bedrock in here yesterday, talked about how their entire building is managed, the supervisors sitting in the cloud. That's not too hard to realize. We have Metasys systems, et cetera, that are cloud. The server side of it's in the cloud. That's a pretty basic cloud capability. But we kind of agonize over this notion, but our users and the use cases will drive what happens. And then the second thing, of course, is if you want to do the data analytics, it's far easier to do those data analytics in a big data environment. That's by definition in the cloud. Certainly you can have some edge AI and some edge trending, et cetera. But if you want simple sort of compute and simple visibility of what's going on, it has to be cloud connected. So it's not really something to agonize over. Yes, cybersecurity is a big issue. Buildings are attacked, especially if you think about the critical infrastructure that we as an industry serve. It's a pretty broad attack plane. So that's a big part of what we have to protect. But we're being, once you have the chance to remotely manage a building, that's all you'll ever do again, right? So we have channel partners, all they do, I have one that has 2 programming techs, they serve 50 branches. And they're very reliant on that sort of connectivity to those buildings. So it's just inherent in it. So I think in 2-3 years, we won't even be talking about this.
I think that's fair. So Todd, you guys have your own, Belimo cloud. Do you guys know there's a Belimo cloud? Yeah? So the Energy Valve will call home to the Belimo cloud where it'll collect data and So what else are you guys going to connect to that thing? Any other plans?
Yeah, the big plans are twofold, but one thing I just want to emphasize, we spend countless hours as a device manufacturer making sure that we can marry and play well with the folks to my left, right? We know our place in the world as an information provider, but it's very important that not only can we marry our system to theirs to provide information, but we do not want to be the Trojan horse that brings in the threat. I think we all can harken back to the huge data breach that Target had a number of years ago, where they came in through the BAS system. And as the device sits so far out on the edge, we maintain a level of vulnerability that sometimes isn't considered. So our cloud security is absolutely critical, but kind of the mantra is we want to make sure that we are as secure to the folks to our left, right? We don't want to introduce a threat that would compromise their system because we're out here on the edge collecting data. So yes, we have our own internal cloud piece, but it's absolutely tantamount that we work and play well and are secure with our strategic partners.
Yeah, for sure. Very good. Yeah, thank you. Etrit, I mean, you're the Fresh Prince of BAS in the cloud. Could you do the Fresh Prince dance for everybody? No, kidding. No, Etrit, I mean, Code Labs, you guys have really exploded onto the scene as a 100% cloud hosted provider of BAS solutions. Could you speak to your customers? Could you, for them, how do they look at the cloud? Is it a must-have, or is it, like the people you talk to, when you go in there, is that, how do the end users that you're winning this business from, what are their thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think from just to reverse just a little bit, I think the cloud technology has really changed the game for the world, right? So we're at the place where we're still talking about cloud here as an industry, but cloud has been here, a lot of great stuff happening, but even system integrators, everybody else, they've been working on the cloud for a long time. I think from our perspective, what's really helped us is, and this is nothing wrong with the consultants or anybody else in the industry, but it's really, when these specifications happen, everybody tries to live by the specification that has been written 10 years ago. And people just keep copying and pasting it. But really, when you get to the IT teams, they're not always as, against cloud as we think they are. They're really more just trying to make sure that there's certifications in place, there's a setup in place. Once they see that there's actual processes there, they actually would rather, a lot of times, would rather go to the cloud than be in some server in a basement or somewhere else, right? That's just the reality of it. So I think we've just gotten lucky because sometimes we've just said, even with our partners, just tell them yes and let's get to the IT. And when we get to IT, they're like, wait, I don't even need this on my cloud. You already have what you need. Let's make the Active Directory authentication, the things that we need, and then let's just keep moving. Can you please not put that on in my building, because like Steven was talking about earlier, there'll be a water leak and you'll lose your history. But I think that's just the reality, and we're seeing it more and more. Even banks and financial institutions, Government Services of America, they have thousands of servers. They can't do anything with that. And if they really want to go to where, now when we talk about cloud being one of the most, obviously, it changed us to what's really going to change us next, which is AI, you can't, we shouldn't even be talking about cloud right now. It should just be a normal thing.
Yeah.
And not 2 years from now.
Right. And Etrit, if you look at your applications, the end users you're working with, for me, I've noticed quite a few end users maybe 10, 15 years ago told us there was going to be no external connections to this network. And we just keep seeing change their opinion, right? They're saying, well, let's look at this. So why is that? Why are these groups changing that perspective on it?
I think a big one is they're being driven to do more with AI, first of all. It's just a really big one. And you even look at the government, right? Doge is all about, let's do more with AI. If you want to do more with AI, you really can't think like you thought a year ago. The other big ones are, cloud is just known to be safer. You can look it up, you know what I mean? It's there. Now, all we have to do, and what these guys are doing, most of them, is they're bringing in the type of talent in these companies that actually know this a little bit more, because generally we have been educating the industry for the longest time, which is right, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to say and to make sure that you're living on-prem and you're living in this secure place, when the reality is that cloud is the secure place.
Yes,
So
agreed.
I think there's more talent now coming into these companies.
Agreed, yes. And there's quite a bit in the industry going on in terms of the network architectures that we put into the buildings, and they're being scrutinized by IT security groups. And the one thing that we find more often than not that they have an issue with is having a web server on a network in their building that's accessible off-prem. So just going over to Tridium, because you're the ones who did it. Just saying. Just kidding. No, I did it. I'm the one who sold it. So it's as much on me as on you. But how are we going to fix the, 300,000-400,000 web servers sitting on people's networks today that have remote connectivity without any protections? We got any plans for that, Stephen?
Yes, we do, Scott.
Good.
So, one of the things that we introduced in Niagara 413, that's out today, is the certificate signing service.
No. Certificates again.
Yeah, sorry, everybody. Now it's time to go to sleep or look at your mobile device. This is a section you don't want to hear. No, so the idea behind that is once again, we're really laser focused on taking really the hassles out of your workflow. And one of those, we know, is just dealing with certificates. This is not something, a concept, or something that we had probably ever thought we were going to have to do as part of our just general day-to-day workflow. And so within 413, we're actually automating the certificate rotation, whether it's in your web service, which is the web server, or it's for Fox, or even AWS connections over MQTT. The whole idea is as long as your certificate authority is valid, you're going to have those certificates constantly getting refreshed. And it's going to be even more of a challenge because now, as I understand it, the length of time that CAs can be valid, they're going to continue to compress that time frame. And so refreshing the certificate authorities and all the dependent certificates that you have within your network, it's going to become even more important. And that's exactly why we did implement that certificate signing service in 413, to take it out, take the headache away from you guys, but to ensure the security of those instances.
So, Stephen, with the framework in 413, we can successfully implement BACnet SC and be the certificate manager for a network of BACnet SC controllers?
So, as of version 411, actually, we implemented support for BACnet Secure Connect. And the one thing about BACnet, that Secure Connect, that's kind of different, is that instead of you going to a DigiCert, for example, to get your certificate authority, they want you to actually have the CA be something that's controlled at the site level. And so, of course, Niagara is perfect for that. You can actually use a Niagara cert for that. But the whole idea is that whole certificate rotation process, that's something we haven't implemented yet in BACnet Secure Connect because the industry is actually, they've created an addendum to version 23 that enables, it specifies this certificate sharing process for all of us. So everybody that's seated up here, if we all want to support BACnet Secure Connect, we're all going to have to implement a couple things that they want us to do to ensure our certificate types are all the same, such that if a Metasys device, for example, is a node and you've got Niagara serving as a hub, that certificate can obviously be trusted, signed, and then obviously rotated through its lifespan. And so this new addendum that was just published in October, I imagine over time we'll see everybody start to adopt it. We certainly will. We have the plans to have that all supported by 2027. So yeah, I think Secure Connect really just needed that one definition in order to take off. And I think we'll see it move thereafter.
And just passing the conversation along over to Kelly, Distech already has some BACnet SC capabilities today. How much is that being accepted? Is it slow adoption at this point, or are you guys starting to see a pickup?
I mean, it's still fairly slow adoption. We are seeing maybe some progress. But, you know, from a cybersecurity perspective, it's a constant focus within our organization, right? With essentially a team from certainly an R&D perspective, both on the edge and in the cloud, focused on the topic. Third-party partnerships to help, and, you know, we're secure by design, secure by default, so that, you know, as Jim was saying today, we'll have hardware going out the door with that capability today. So, but yeah, from a BACnet SC perspective, we still have uphill battles at times.
Yeah. Dave, I hate to do it to you, but dang it, you're global. So, I mean, from a global perspective, I mean, the cybersecurity issue, obviously here it's one thing and we're all living in it, but what about the rest of the world? What are they dealing with? Is it like it is here, or is it more pervasive, less?
It is a country by country reality in the cyber world. There are some countries that have similar requirements and expectations that the United States federal government has that we have to comply to. And there are some that are a decade behind, honestly. So it's always a local kind of regulatory thing that we have to pay attention to. I
always wonder, does everybody get attacked like we do in terms of the number of attacks? Is it the rest of the world get attacked like we do?
I'm not going to speak to the rest of the world, but to the comment that was made, we get attacked all the time. Like tens of thousands of penetration attempts a day on Honeywell servers. Maybe the number might be even more now, but it's a ridiculous amount. And so just the ability for us to comply with, being a big defense contractor ourselves, to comply with federal government standards in the highest, level of cybersecurity at the device level with IEC 62443 level 3 security, like we have that in many of our products in our IA business, because they're controlling petrochemical and nuclear reactors and those kind of things. We're having to bring those things now down into buildings.
Interesting. So Bill, with Johnson Controls, of course, you guys are life safety, your security, and HVAC. So are you guys looking at cybersecurity holistically, or is it like by vertical, or could you speak to where you guys are at on that journey?
It's absolutely holistically, and it's, we mentioned the global aspect of things, and the good news is if somebody sets a standard, that becomes a global standard, because there's no reason why if on your platform you're meeting that high standard, you don't meet that across your portfolio and in all the markets you distribute. So, I mean, to a certain extent there's an operational impact if you're supporting a higher level of security and whatnot, but it's definitely something across the portfolio. Johnson Controls had a cyber event about 2 years ago that was definitely a wake-up call. It moved us quicker to the cloud. There was a comment made earlier about how the cloud is way more secure than anything on-prem. We have a 50,000-foot data center in our Milwaukee headquarters building. It's empty. There's not one server in that data center anymore. So, there are certain inherent aspects of cybersecurity that happen by making the right moves. From a architecture perspective, from a platform perspective, from a go-to-market perspective, et cetera. And then we do see it across the domains as well.
Yeah, anybody who's been hacked, any business that's been hacked, and they had their equipment on their network on-prem and whatnot, they no longer have it on-prem, and I can tell you that. So that's just the way it goes, I guess. So sometimes you do it because it's the right thing to do. Sometimes you wait till you get hacked and then you do it. But I think it is inevitable. The stuff will all end up on the cloud. And I believe it is because of cybersecurity. I think that's what's going to drive most of it to the cloud, frankly, is to just simply protect ourselves. Okay, guys, that was awesome. Thank you very much.